What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS.
Established over 100 years ago, Watkins Books is one of the world's oldest and leading independent bookshops specializing in esoterica. We have the widest selection of esoteric books in the UK, and our friendly and knowledgeable staff are here to assist you in a unique ambience of our shop. So come and visit us in the heart of London as we're open every day.
The comments and views expressed on The More Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The More Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online. You're now watching the UK's only alternative late-night talk show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. On today's show, I'm joined with Annie Stillwater-Gray, who is a writer, a mystic, an astrologer and public speaker with an international clientele. Annie has been on the air since 1974 and has her own syndicated radio program called The General Store Variety Show, now in its 16th year. Annie has studied integrated energy therapy, Reiki, and received a BFA from Boston University in graphic arts and writing. She joins me today to discuss her latest book, Education of a Guardian Angel. Annie Stillwater-Gray, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
I'm so grateful to have you on with us today. I really am. You've took a lot of time out to make this possible, this interview, because you're actually in your local library in Maine.
Yes, correct.
So thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, truly.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it quite nice in Maine today?
It's actually quite chilly. They're having snow further south, and it's about 35 degrees.
Wow, snow in... Well, actually, we did have a little bit of sleet here in the UK today as well, so yeah, I don't think it's quite summer just yet. Okay, right. Well, this book that we're going to be talking about today is The Education of a Guardian Angel, the Training of a Spirit Guide. Now, I don't believe this is your latest book, though, is it?
Actually, it's not. The Dawn book was published last October by Ozark Mountain Publishing, and The Education of a Guardian Angel ends with the writing of the Dawn book. So they came out in that order.
Right, yes, and I didn't realize the Dawn book was... I knew it was there, but I didn't know it played the sort of the prequel to this book as well.
Yes, it is.
And just very briefly, what was the Dawn book about?
The Dawn book is a spiritual workbook that gives us information. Some of it I had known before the master guides gave it to me. But there's a lot of information in there that's new for humanity, and it's only been available to shaman and yogis and really, high priestesses and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, now it's available to all of us because evidently, Kevin, we have evolved to the point where we can now get this information and use it.
Apparently so. I hear the same from a lot of people. I do. I really do.
Yes. Yes.
Now, obviously, this book and your books have been published by Dolores Cannon's company. You was at the last conference, which was just recently.
Yes.
Yep.
First week in April, I was there.
What was that like? Was it a good turnout?
Was a good turnout, and it was spring.
Yes.
It was wonderful. The dogwoods were in blossom, the red buds. It was lovely.
Good. Excellent. Well, it was a chance to promote your work as well, which is fun. Now, just out of curiosity, do you provide readings for people?
I don't usually. My favorite thing is to do a class because I feel like if people learn how to connect with their guides, then they can do it for the rest of their lives and they don't need to continue to call me. So I prefer to do classes, although I do, I call them conversations because basically the guides join us and we all talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, would you class yourself as sort of semi-retired from the working world in a sense?
I'm anything but retired, Kevin. I'll tell you. They just made me general manager of a new community radio station. I've done radio since 1974. I've never missed a year being on the air. I've done a lot of community and non-commercial radio because commercial radio is not interesting to me anymore. So
wow.
I have not retired.
Okay, no, I've actually I've actually worked at a lot of community stations in the UK. I'm guessing the community stations in the UK are quite different to community radio in America. But yeah, I know what it's. The community stations are great because it's a real sort of. You get to meet some great people, and they're really passionate about what they do with their shows as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. Since 1974, you've been on air. Wow, that's incredible. And is that a music show that you do?
I was a commercial DJ for 20 years. And back when I started, the DJs were also the programmers, so that someone could call in a request. I had a fellow call in a request. He said, I have a whole barrel of smelts to clean. I want to hear Led Zeppelin, right? So those were the days when you could take requests, you could relate to your audience. It's very boring now because everything's pre-programmed. And even
yes, it is.
So it's commercial radio is very boring now.
Okay.
So I prefer.
Okay, so
That's where the fun is.
Yeah. That's your earthly job in a sense.
Yes.
When did this metaphysical job start for you, or this purpose more than a job? Was it in about 1989 when you hurt your back and lost your job? Is that when your awakening experience happened?
That was certainly one of them. I'm going to say there was one earlier one when someone showed me my astrological chart. And I looked at it, and I knew I had seen it before, and that freaked me out. I'll tell you, Kevin, I said I had to understand. I wanted to know where I had known it from and why I related to it so strongly. So I became an astrologer and learned about it. And then, of course, I'd heard about spirit guides and spirit helpers, but it wasn't until '89 that I actually had mine consciously connect to me.
Incredible. And in the sense of guides, I mean, you say that we all have a guide. What benefit is it for us to get in contact with our guides?
Well, they have a big overview, which we don't have. I mean, it's when you come into an earth life, it's like you're putting on blinders because you don't remember what you've done before, other lifetimes, unless you research it. As you get older, you can do that. But the guides have access to the Akashic records, to all our past lives. They can go, I'll ask just simple things like, can you check out if this book is at this library? Darcy, you look first, and then I won't have to stop there if it's not there. See, he'll run errands for me like that. But I mean, more importantly, it's like, staying on the path that's best for you and your soul and your higher self.
Yeah, okay. And we all have the ability to communicate back to them, but obviously your ability was less filtered, clearer, and predestined, obviously, to write this book with free will, I'm guessing, very much. Now, just who is Darcy?
Darcy Munn Stillwater is a spirit guide. He is my personal life guide. The spiritualists call them gatekeepers. And he has signed on to be my spirit helper. He helped me choose my parents, choose my situation that I would be born into. He was present at my birth. He stays with me and he helps me when it's time for me to pass over. And then we renegotiate after that. So he's basically signed on, and everybody has a spirit helper that has signed on to be with them. It's very comforting.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Now, when Darcy came through, were you scared initially, or was it really you were just like, well, is that for real? Am I imagining this?
Yes, I did question it. Absolutely. I had a bad back injury, as you mentioned, so I thought, oh, the pain has pushed me over the edge, right? And it happened while I was doing the dishes. So I tell this to everybody who's listening, your God can contact you anytime, anywhere. You don't have to be in a temple in deep meditation, although that works too sometimes, but it can be anytime. And I was living without running water in an old cabin. So I had to pump the hand pump the water and take it over to the stove and heat it on the wood stove. And with a bad back, that is not so easy. So he started talking to me while I was in the process of doing that. And he said, the first words he said to me were, "You never listen to classical music." Of course, he died in 1836, and he loved the classical music of that time. And it's true, I'm a rock and roller. So, and he said, "I would like to hear Bach, but you don't have any Bach. But you do have a Beethoven record. Why not play that for me?" Of course, we're talking 89. This is before CDs, all you people who've never handled a vinyl record. So, and so I had an entire wall of vinyl records, and I just walked over, and I didn't even have to look. He put my hand right on the Beethoven record, and I pulled it out and played it, and we listened to it together. And it was a little while before I got comfortable with hearing him talk to me.
Okay.
Somebody gave me a book called Companions in Spirit, written by Leah Maggie Garfield, who had a spirit guide contact her whole life, and had her mother did and her grandmother did. So she kind of helped me understand what was happening. And
right. Okay, that's interesting. That's very interesting. And now you wouldn't call this receiving or channeling. You'd call this a telepathic, if we can get the words out, a telepathic connection.
Yes. Well, we have a telepathic center in our brains. And you know how scientists say we only use a small part of our brains, but we're learning to use more, and you can tell that by the galloping technology all around us. So if you start opening up the telepathic center, which is behind the third eye and down from the crown chakras, if you open that up, if you light that up, then you can have telepathic communication with whatever, because basically it's a way of communicating with vibrations, with energy.
You're kind of pointing to your third eye there. Is that the same as the third eye communication? Or did you say it was behind the third eye?
That's the telepathic center in the brain, is behind the third eye and down from the crown.
You see, there's so many ways of doing it, isn't there? And there's never one fits all. Yeah,
everybody's different. Everybody has a different way to tune in, but the good news is that you can do it yourself.
Yeah. Now, I could say to you that okay, there are other channelers out there who have a take on a persona, and for me though, there seems to be a new paradigm of channeling in the sense where it's coming in through your higher self, the oversoul, and you don't take on a persona. There is no names associated with these energetic beings, and you could almost say that it's you that's bringing the information through. You're that powerful. Your higher self is bringing and knows this information and is bringing it through. We color it and call it something else, but really it's actually us. That's how powerful we are.
That is in part very true, because our guides work on such a high level that you need to really be occupying your higher self in order to be able to get that information and be able to communicate with the beings who are there to help us. So in essence, you're right about that.
Yeah, it doesn't all.
But they're still their own person though. They're still their own entity.
They're still separate. Yeah. Yeah. I'm only saying these words and using this understanding just to give us some sort of foundation for what we're potentially able to work with. But, I do say to a lot of people in interviews, it may not even be this framework we're talking about. It may be something completely different. This is just a way for us to describe it.
Right. Oh, indeed. When both of these books, I feel like they had to, I won't exactly say dumb it down, but they had to put it in terms that we humans could understand. So it could be quite different, really, when we get out into spirit ourselves.
It could be, and even the word spirit probably doesn't do it justification. It's probably not even that. It's probably something, something came to me a few days ago that actually this is a life review. This existence right now is a life review, nothing more. And as it was like, it can't be. That's a nonsense, silly idea I've got in my head. But then I thought to myself, well, God, well, what if that's true? That this is all just a life review. This isn't the life before the review. This is just one life review. I don't know. But then you're able to make your own truth up in this reality, it seems to be. So am I just making a truth up? Yeah. Yes. I'm just pointing out some things to you that, this journey is not a straight road, nor are these subjects, but they're so expansive. If you're able to look beyond what it's either this or that, it could be something else.
Yes.
Yeah.
It could be.
It's so interesting, it really is. But, that doesn't take away anything from someone like your work as well, from what I'm saying. Now, very interesting what we've got here. The training of a spirit guide. This is a story of Darcy and what he went through to become trained as a guardian angel. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Wow. Okay. It's really, really fascinating. So he dies. His last life was in 1836. Is that correct?
Correct. In England. Yeah.
In England. Right. Okay.
Yes.
And obviously, this is you were born, I think, 46. So this is way before.
Yes.
Was there a previous life there with him in 1836?
No, I wasn't in that one.
Not in that one, right, okay. So, this is his journey of him going through the light, going through the tunnel, is that right?
Yes. Yeah. And,
okay.
Being welcomed and being told he's earned the right to become a spirit guide if he chooses so.
How did he earn the right for that, in a sense? What had he had to go through?
He lived a lifetime of love and compassion, unconditional love and compassion.
And what does that mean? What does that look like if we were to examine that type of life?
Well, every interaction you have, you approach from, the chakras. You approach from your heart chakra and up, and you're very compassionate and understanding with everyone you deal with and every situation. He did that. Evidently. I wasn't there.
What if we haven't lived that type of life up to now, and we choose to live that type of life from a point in time of our choosing, maybe now, maybe next week, maybe a year's time? Does that mean that we would have to have lived that type of life from day one, or can we live it now and progress onto something more when we cross over? Is it too late for some of us?
I think it varies. My understanding is that we choose certain challenges to address each time we come to Earth. And if you have addressed them, then you probably could go ahead and go on. If you have not, then you have to come back and do again.
Why would you want to become a guardian angel?
Good question. It's not easy. It's not an easy road. I guess because you'd be helping not only the planet, but also humanity and everything else that exists on Earth, especially in Darcy's case, freshly coming from Earth, and he still had a great love for the planet and how beautiful England is and where he was and all. So he was very ready to come back and help. And then once I came into the picture, he was passionate about getting through his studies so he could come back and be my particular guardian angel.
So just to clear that up, when he went through the training of becoming a spirit guide, he remembered lifetimes with yourself. And was there a agreement in place that he would come to you in this lifetime with free will if you choose to listen, or whether you maybe not listened?
Yes, indeed.
Right. Okay, that's interesting.
Well, we trained together. Part of the book is our training together, because my job or my path is to encourage people to get in touch with their spiritual helpers, and specifically consciously in touch. Clairaudience, clairvoyance, these things we can learn and we can bring forward in our lives if we wish to.
Yes, we can. There's others out there that call guardian angels not that name, but a name like the team, connecting with your team. Now, they are talking about groups, in a sense, that are spiritually connected with you on these other dimensions. Is that the same as a guardian angel?
I think it's simpler for humans to deal with one or two helpers, although I certainly think that kind of group interaction is in place as well. I think it's very complicated. I think it's extremely complicated.
Yeah, because I had Frances Keon yesterday as an interview, and she channeled her mother from the other side and wrote 3 books. And Mother talks about team members on the other side, and in this incarnation, in the physical, there's team members here from that same group as well that we can join up and work together and bring some wonderful information through in this way as well. Well, she's brought information through like you have, in a sense. It's just there seems to be a connection with all these different understandings. It's kind of the same thing. It's just it's almost like your work is for a particular type of audience, their work is for another type of audience, that those audiences don't always overlap, because you're meant to be waking up different people in different ways.
But we're all headed down the same path.
We're headed down the same path, yeah, absolutely, of oneness and maybe unconditional love, in a sense, and or progressing yourself. It's absolutely fascinating, isn't it? Okay, but for Darcy, he could he not have chosen to go on to other dimensions? Why come back as a? I know we've tried to answer that question. Why come back as a guardian angel? But surely there was other choices. He could have gone to other realities and had other lifetimes there.
He could have come back to Earth. That was a choice. And the thing is that because we have free will here, you could be highly evolved as Darcy was. And he would, if he chose to come back to Earth, he could have made some mistakes, as I did in one of my lifetimes, and then he would lose that opportunity.
Okay. I know these questions are a bit all over the place in some respect, but it's just, it's so fascinating about the free will aspect. It really is. But, what he's brought through yourself with this book, as a team, as a partnership, you've done this, is some really wonderful information. What strikes you about some of the healing lessons that are in the book to learn from as he goes through his training?
Yeah, first of all, there's a very clear understanding of karma, because you follow it through lifetimes, and you can see, I made a mistake that, and the other thing I did an interview with Adnan, and I started to talk about this, and I didn't get to finish, so I'm going to finish with you, Kevin. There's the birth imprint, which is the astrological chart. There's also a death imprint. That's why it's so important how people pass over. That the more in peace they can be, and the more love that they feel, the easier it is going to be for them as they go to whatever's next. But you can really sympathize for people who die in battle or die in fear. It's tough. But in the book, you can see how I died in one situation that then caused me to be born deformed in the next lifetime, and then in the next lifetime after that, So I'm still working on that one, but I hope to kind of cancel it out this round.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah, that's a really clear understanding of karma, I would say, is one of the best things that you can get from it.
yeah, but it's not like, oh my God, I've discovered this information and I better live this way, otherwise, Big Brother's going to come get me, almost, religious like. We're not saying that. It's all with free will. There are just ways to make your life easier, and there's ways to understand why present patterns may be in your life because you haven't resolved something from before. Is that kind of what we're saying?
That is exactly right. Yes. And you choose how you deal with it. That's the free will part. There's the challenge. You choose how you deal with it.
But a lot of us don't want to examine our patterns or own up to our issues that we have, because it means maybe looking at things from this perspective or a completely different perspective, and it's just a lot of that scares a lot of people.
Yes, it does. I know. But I think that there are times when doors open in our lives and you have the opportunity to do what you're supposed to be doing.
No, yes, you do. Yes, yes. There's always yes, and those doors will reopen again for you, because we're not talking about a judgmental universe. If you haven't done it, what could have been better for you in the first place, there will be other opportunities.
There'll be another time to
Yeah.
do it. Exactly.
But you mentioned something really important there, in the sense of the fear when even when people cross over, when they're passing over, if they've not sorted out issues in this lifetime. Okay, so if a family has got unresolved issues in this lifetime, they may not be speaking to each other. There may have been something terrible that happened between other family members, and there's been no healing that's been able to take place because one's tried and the other's not wanted to know. Where's the healing in that? Because you've tried to sort it out, but they've not been non-responsive.
Yeah, it'll be different for the person who's not responding to the one who is, I think. And if the one who's really tried has forgiven the other person and has really let them go with love and compassion, I think that person's going to be okay. The other one is probably going to have to come back and do it in a different scenario.
Right. Yeah. And and would you say, when we say got to come back, do you still think there's free will to come back, and do you also think that you would want to come back when you're fully aware of the true nature of your consciousness and who you potentially are, that you'd want to?
Hold on just a second. I just have to have you ask that again, because I'm in a public library and we just had someone come in, and
It's
I
okay.
could not.
It's okay. It's no problem. It's no problem. No, I'll ask that again. An interesting question here as well. Yeah. Do you think that when you are in this reality that we go to potentially, of where our consciousness comes from, some people call it heaven or home or however you want to personify it, it doesn't matter, they're just words, but where we reside when we cross over, do you think that we would really want to come back here so desperately, which is a potential, isn't it, that we really, really would, because when we see the bigger picture of the reason what it was all about in the first place? And do you think we also, that karma's not like, like we must go back, deeming, you this is what you're told to do, you have free will to go back or not?
I think you do have some choice, but if you haven't resolved all your challenges and issues, you have to do it somewhere sometime. And a lot of the times it's coming back to Earth.
See, I'm not too sure where that fits in with me, because I like the idea that, no, I'm not being pushed down a slide, I will go down it when I'm ready.
Sure, yep. And I don't really know exactly, because I'm not in that other space that you're talking about, home or heaven or whatever. I don't know.
I just wonder what if what Darcy would say about that. Yeah, it's
Well, he was given a choice because he had earned the right not to have to come back. This is called the lower wheel. That's what I've heard a number of different spirit guides call it, and the master guides call it the lower wheel, because we're dealing with more base issues. We're dealing with physicality. And he was given the opportunity not to have to come back, and he took it.
Don't you think there could be a potentially, if not that it would be a reality, but there's almost like we could personify it as there's like a queue A mass queue. This is probably the most wanted queue to come down here. It is. This is probably the most addictive place to want to come to. This crazy place called Earth. And it's if only we realised, and I do realise for myself sometimes, just actually it must have been so damn important that I wanted to come here.
Yeah. Well, I think you were supposed to come here to do what you're doing, but well, that's possible. But you know what? Spirit guides look at us and think we're the brave ones. Because just think about being in a physical body, how big of a challenge that is, especially for some people. Some people, all their challenges lie in the physical body, and taking care of it. And if you have to do with pain and with maiming or whatever, it's a huge challenge. Then we have the whole emotional piece. That's another challenge as well. So the guides think we're the brave ones.
Incredible, incredible, incredible. Okay, well, let's just look at some of the chapters in the book. I mean, this is a great book. I mean, it's been coming up on the screen, but I'll kind of hold it up. It's it's what is it? 600 pages.
Yes.
It's a really
that's after edit.
Yes, God, that's after edit.
Down a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. It's not it's a great read. There's a lot of great material here, so we're not going to barely touch the surface of this. But I would like to just talk about some of the chapters. What was it like, as Darcy described it, to remember lives with you? Was there a library to go visit?
For him, yes. For me, he just told me. We would go for long walks, like 3-4 mile walks, and he would tell me one of the lifetimes. I remember the one in Egypt took a long walk. The one in India took a long walk. And he would just tell me. And the thing is, Kevin, he gives such details, right? He showed me pictures of what the room was like back in the Dark Ages there when we were in the Ruhr Valley. I could see the smoke-stained woodwork. I mean, the details were incredible. And he showed me these pictures so that I could then write them down.
Just incredible. But he did speak of going into a library as well to educate himself.
He did.
Yeah, or to remember.
Yes, he did. He would go into the library and read about past lives, and some of them had me, and some of them didn't have me in them. But most of them did have me in them.
And do you think this was just a way for us to understand how that information came to him? But potentially there may not have been a library. It may have been something that's beyond our understanding. But
I agree. Yes.
Yes.
I don't think there's a physical library, but this is the way he chose to describe it because it was easy for us to grasp.
No, it's where you are now, a library. Great to pick up a book behind you and say and start reading our past lives. It's just fascinating stuff. And okay, I really wanted to ask you there, rather than go on to another chapter as well, which we will do. What did he say about the kind of nature of the level that he'd gone to? I mean, was there almost higher levels above him to go to?
Oh yes, but not for him, but yes. In fact, when he first comes over after he dies in 1836, he meets his spirit guide, his life guide from that lifetime, and because he had lived such a stellar lifetime, Darcy had lived such a stellar lifetime, his guide was then able now to graduate to become a master guide. And there are many levels of master guides, many levels of angels beyond my understanding, but you kind of get a sense of that when he goes through his finals from school. He needs to know all that stuff, so there's some of it was difficult for me to grasp.
I mean, but it was difficult for him to grasp. Yeah. and when you talk about long walks together, was this while you were dreaming that you had these connections with him, or
no, conscious. That's the whole thing. Although many people do work through their dreams, I'm the one. I teach telepathy and I teach conscious connection to your spirit helpers. That's my riff.
Incredible. And okay, so it's fully conscious, this information. So it was a teaching for you in real time as well, which is fascinating. Okay, well, there's also he talks about, Darcy does, about the passion is my teacher.
Yes. That was because he finally started reading about our lifetimes together and all that we had gone through. And the more he read, the more passionate he was about finishing all of his training so that he could meet me again and we could do what we're doing now, basically.
Yeah, and what you're doing now is just incredible. I mean, now going back to the healing aspect as well, because obviously there's a whole chapter dedicated to lessons in healing.
Yes.
Is that something you could just touch on as well?
Yes, I think I love learning how the guides heal us and help us heal, and how they move energy. A lot of times, in you listeners and viewers, there could be healings while you're sleeping where there's a guide at your head and a guide at your feet, and sometimes they do a four-way as well, where they're on four sides of you, and they're able to move the energy. They can relieve pain that way. They can increase healing. You know, if you've been in an accident or had an illness, they can move the energy through so that you can heal faster. It's marvelous, the kind of help that they can give us. Is that what you were looking for, Kevin?
Yeah, that is incredible, isn't it? And are they always there for us to call upon in the sense that if we are feeling a bit lost or we don't know the answer for what we're looking for, some would maybe call out to God or whatever it is that works for them. But for those that are attracted to this work, they could call on their guides for help.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, I think probably when people do call out to God, the guides come. Anyway, so I guess tell them you don't have to believe. You don't have to believe in them. They're there anyway. You know.
Yeah, they're always there. Yeah, they've never left you. Um, do you think they influence us when we're trying to make intuitive decisions as well?
Yes, I do. I mean, it is in the end up to us because of the free will piece. But I think that they probably do bring us information, perhaps, or intuitive feelings, as you said, to help us choose the most appropriate path.
Are they there when we're choosing our next lifetime?
Yes.
Why would they let us choose a lifetime of complete restrictions where we're born into a religious family and it's the only religion that we're going to believe in because that's what's going to indoctrinate us and we're not going to want to move past that? We're maybe not strong enough to say to ourselves, not able to take self-responsibility to say that I'll look at this and think, well, is there this real truth or is it just coming from anger and pain and hate in a sense? What obviously it's all allowed, everything's with free will, but then we must be warned that it's that it's going to give us restrictions, but maybe that's the restrictions that the soul's looking for.
Exactly. You hit the old nail on the head there, Kevin, because we do choose our parents, but in the book I choose from 20 pairs of parents, but they all have similar issues. They all have, financial issues, for instance. Oh, and in the case they would all have religious restriction issues, so that no matter which set of parents you pick, you're still going to face that challenge. So it's karmic.
Did you in this lifetime choose religious parents?
No, not really. No. In fact, I picked mismatched parents. They stayed together, but my father was born in Shotts, Scotland.
Right. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. So you've got some UK descendants, then. That's very interesting. Yeah. So in this life, it was totally different for you. Do you know what your previous life was?
The one right before this, I was born an orphan. My parents were Italian and came over from Livorno, Italy, and they died on board the ship. So I ended up on the shores of New York as an orphan and was put in an orphanage in Brooklyn.
Wow.
But I only lived to be 8.
Oh my gosh. Right. And how have you rediscovered that memory?
Well, that's part of the book because it was time for Darcy to. He was so excited. The book there's so much passion in the book on his part because it's all written in the first person. He was so excited to meet me, and my guide in that lifetime brought him down, and then I was basically I was killed by a heavily laden milk wagon while I was in the process of stealing fruit because I was so hungry. And that was the way for me to be quickly taken over to the other side.
Oh my gosh. Right. Okay. So not always easy lives. I suppose you could say, well, would you say from writing this book that we are all of us on this planet are almost the same soul age? That in infiniteness, there is no beginning in a sense. Maybe that we are all the same level.
I think we're all here because of the big transition going on the planet now. I think we're all here to experience that. Some of us have experienced it before. Maybe all of us have. Have been several transitions on the planet before now. Atlantis is one, and the Great Floods. Although when I was at the conference, the Ozark Mountain Conference, we had someone say that they thought they were the same. The Atlantean disaster was also the same as the big flood that's in the Bible. So it's hard to know because there aren't any records really. But I think we've all experienced this kind of great transition, and we are about to see it. It's coming at the conference again. We had a gentleman stand up. His name was Lee Sumter, and he actually put a date to when the great the magnitude 10 earthquake is going to hit Seattle and Vancouver. And I thought he was brave to do that.
So the group there foresaw massive earth changes in a sense.
Yes, well, we've kind of known about this for a long time. One of the chapters of the Dawn book starts with, an eagle flies over the coastline, it is a new coastline. And I thought it was the East Coast, but according to Lee Sumter, it's the West Coast. It could happen anywhere, but we know that the Earth is changing, the ice caps are melting, the poles are shifting. Let me tell you this story, Kevin. This is really interesting. I have what's called a sacred fire circle. It's an Apache tradition on my land. And you build it with 12 stones, and you have an open section that faces east. Right? And I made it originally in 1994. When I went through an Apache croning ceremony in 2002, they had to redo it because magnetic east had changed. And then when I went out to do sacred fire this year, I had to redo it again because magnetic east has shifted, or north it would be really, but on a compass, I was looking to north and then east to get the opening right. I had to redo it again. So things are moving, things are changing. Of course, they always are, but really in a very noticeable way. If I can see that in a matter of 15 years, where are we headed?
So you think some of the earth changes that could possibly happen, maybe not for a very long time yet, maybe sooner, we don't know, are in connection with the awakening process that's happening on planet Earth as well. It's all connected.
Yes, it's all connected. Lee happened to think that it was he'd had visions, and he said, I didn't want to see it. I told him to take away the visions, but then they kept showing him to him, so he felt he had to say. It was interesting because he wasn't really talking about that. He was talking about how far we'd come in history between the telegraph.
I know who the chap you're talking about. He came on the show. Lee, yes.
Yes, Lee Sumter.
Very interesting guy, yes.
Yes. But all of a sudden he switched, and he said, I feel I have to tell you this. And he said mid-October it would be 60 days that would start with earthquakes going down the coast, and then there'll be volcanic eruptions all over the planet. Now, that's what he said, and I was glad, actually, that I was speaking after him, because what the Dawn book does is it gives us all ways to cope with heavy-duty transition.
And what are some of those ways?
Well, for one thing, to look at it as an opportunity for humanity. And I personally got up there and I used 9/11 as an example, because what happened with 9/11 was everything went still. There were no aircraft in the skies, and compassion poured out of the hearts of people. And then, of course, it didn't last all that long because, the war and so on and so forth. But when there are big disasters like that, people go to their hearts, and compassion flows. And if humanity can just lift up out of that, that root chakra, or the third chakra, the power chakra, lift everything up to the heart chakra and above, we will have an entirely different planet here. So see it as an opportunity to do that.
That is so true. With the training of a spirit guide as well, what transitional, well, I don't really know what to ask. I might cut this bit out, but I'm just really trying to get to a question of what are some of the great benefits of reading this book?
And, well, there are two books, right? So I'll tell you that the Dawn book that I just spoke of is a workbook. It has visualizations in it. It has an entire chapter on enlightenment. If you want to become an enlightened being, it actually tells you step by step how to do that. So it's a workbook. And I tell people you don't have to read it from page 1 to page whatever it is here, page 309. You don't have to read it in order. You can just open it up. Some people do this with the Bible too. You just open it up and you read what it says for you that day. That's how I wrote it. I wrote little pieces each morning. That's how I did it. That's why it's called, one of the reasons it's called the Dawn book, because I got up at dawn and I would just write what Darcy told me, and he had worked with the Master Guides. It's the Dawn book, Information from the Master Guides is the whole title. All right, now the reason to read the Education of a Guardian Angel is so we know that we have these life guides, what they do to become life guides, and also then what's possible between us and them. If we can work as a team, everything is going to be so much better.
Absolutely. And there's so many different messages in this field, in the metaphysical,
but I think that
field.
they back each other up, though. I don't think
they do. They do. You've just got to see the connections sometimes. And there is the connections. There is. It's almost like we're all kind of saying the same thing, but in different ways.
Yes, because people, I say some people will connect with their guides through hearing them, right? Clairaudience. Some will get visions. Some will get dreams. Some will just work entirely from the gut. Everybody's different, but it can happen for everyone.
Yeah, it can do. And are you still in contact with Darcy now?
Oh, yes. He's right here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He wasn't going to let me come down here alone.
And what would Darcy's next progression be?
Well, we're actually, there's a sequel to Education of a Guardian Angel, which Ozark has now, and they're considering it's called Work of a Guardian Angel, and I'm on the 4th book now, which is Joys of a Guardian Angel. And it really is very surprising where it goes. It takes it in a different direction, and a very interesting and very different direction.
Right, yeah, I kind of sensed that it was, yeah. So, when you take on to become a guardian angel, does that last for the lifetime of just the one person that you're working with? Or are we looking at that? Am I looking at that wrong? Where if all lives are not one after the other, but they're parallel in a sense, then there may be multiple lives that he's with you as a guardian angel in future lives right now.
Well, there's that. I think that boggles the mind to go there, but I certainly will say that it's a possibility. Yep. For instance, there are some guides that have multiples of themselves.
God.
Like there's the Esther. Esther is a guide that deals with relationships, and she has shown up different places in my life. My grandmother's guide was Esther, but then, sometimes when I do conversations, I call them conversations instead of readings, with people, Esther will show up. And so that there are, sometimes they have multiple because they're trained in a specific thing. That's another thing people should know, is that your life guide's with you your whole life. However, if circumstances change for you, your life guide can bring in other helpers. Like when you become a parent, for instance, they bring in a nanny guide or a tutor guide or something. If you change jobs, they bring in another guide that, if your guide doesn't have the information needed, they don't stop there. They go and find other spirit helpers who do have that.
But, okay, so these guys are around us. How do we tell the effects that they're there if we're not actively looking into these subjects? So if someone's, just having a normal life in the sense that they're not questioning No, I shouldn't say that because that's not very normal to me to not question your potentialism, your consciousness. But if someone's not, though, if they're just getting on with whatever it is they're doing in this lifetime, how would you know by just observing them that some of the actions that they've taken are because of the guardian angels, or would that be something very personal to them in a sense of on that intuitive connection?
Very personal. If you're, but the guides will. I tell people, you don't have to be telepathic right this minute. If you want help, write down what you're looking for, whether you need information or you want to know about someone or some situation. Write it down, but be very, very specific, and then your guides will get you that information. Julia Cannon says that if you ask your guides, you'll get the answer 3 times in the next day. You ever hear her say that?
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, I've not.
You have to be aware, though. It's true. If you're not paying attention and you're really on the wrong path, then something will happen, like an accident or something really to turn you around. Something will happen. But if you want to work with your guides, it's right there for you.
Do some people bypass their guides?
Well, some people like working with the angels better. I have a friend who works with the archangels. That her life guide had allowed that, because your life guide's kind of like a protector, almost a traffic cop, and no other entities can come in and interact with you unless they give the okay. So if that was evidently it worked out better for her to deal with the archangels. Some people like the angels better. The angels will come and go, though. They won't be there like steady like your guide will, your life guide.
In some of these very rare cases where people think they've been had attachments to them, or poltergeist activity where it's affected them, where are the guides in that particular scenario?
I have a story because this just happened in Arkansas to me. The day after the conference ended, I had one of the people that was in my workshop say, I'll drive you around. I'll show you Eureka Springs, Arkansas. It's beautiful. Let's go for a drive. The first place she took me was a haunted hotel right up on top of the hill. All right. It was really unusual because here's this big haunted hotel. I've been there for 150 years or whatever, and across the valley is this big statue of Christ. So it was very interesting. So the first thing that happened was when we were walking in, I stumbled, and I won't say that I'm the most graceful person in the world, but I don't usually do that. And that was my warning, my guide telling me not to go in there. And then, but you're with a group of people, you kind of go in. We saw the chandeliers and the old hotel and all that, and it used to be a lot of people died there because it used to be a cancer hospital. Anyway, I had actually had a force push me against a railing, and I got a bruise on my back right next to my kidney. So I said to Darcy, I said, where were you? Why didn't you? He goes, I did protect you. It would have been a lot worse if I hadn't been there. So there you go. There's the story.
That's very, very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate that. That sort of answers that question. So they are there, but you still have free will in a sense to do. Yeah, there's always that sort of prime directive. If you want to call it that. Yeah. I'm very interested to see what you've brought through with these other books you're working on. That's so very interesting. Okay. I've tried to cover as much as I can do here. Obviously, time is really not on our side right now.
I understand. We'll do it again sometime.
Well, we will do once you've got your new books. Absolutely. It's a fascinating subject that we've all got these guys and they change in time, and that the book is so in depth about the various stages that Darcy had to go through, almost like an apprenticeship in a sense, wasn't it?
Well, he had an apprenticeship. It was during World War II.
Oh, okay.
It was in France during World War II, and he and some of the other guides in training did healings on the soldiers. That was a very, very powerful chapter.
For some people that may listen to this interview that aren't really too sure, there is a veil, isn't there, that's in place, it seems to be, that we've forgotten our true connection of what our consciousness is. This,
sure. Yeah.
What is this that's inside us that makes us aware? And I like the word consciousness for me. It's such a pain in the backside that we're not able to remember the truth. But I guess it would not be a test if we did.
Yes, that's true. We're here to break through that veil, however we're meant to, or however we can.
Do you think for some people who do not break through the veil?
Oh, I know for sure they don't.
Yeah, right.
Because some people are just so, they're so wrapped up in the material world, that they don't even think about that there might be something else out there. And there is so much else. Just even on Earth, there's so much else going on.
On Earth there is, that's right. Maybe they've had that life with a heavy veil on purpose because they're supposed to be veiled very heavily in this lifetime.
I think that was the case with my father. He really had material issues and he had to focus on those. Yep.
What does this book do, or your material do, in a sense, in your books? Even if they were just to get this book, which is a fantastic book, to the first one to get, but if they were to get
because
both
it's
books,
a story for one thing.
Yes.
It was not easy for me to do. I'll tell you.
I can imagine it must have taken some time to bring this through.
Well, and also because it lays my karma right out there for all to see. I'm used as an example, basically.
Of course you are. Of course you are. How much does reading this material help us with being here in present moment and getting the best out of this life we've got right now?
Yes, well, it helps understand karma. I think I said that before, but also it helps us understand who these spirit helpers are, how we can interconnect with them, and how we can work together to make our lives way, way better.
Now, how can people get in contact with yourself?
Yep, I have a website that's real easy. It's spiritguides.cc. You know how you can remember that? CC the Spirit Guides.
I love it. Okay, well, that website's been going throughout this interview along with your books as well, and I've seen the website. It's really, really nice what the job they've done with that website as well. Okay, and people can contact you through that.
Yes.
Okay, and the book obviously is available through Amazon and all good bookstores and directly from Ozark Mountain Publishing. Okay. What would you like to say, or what would you give as an important message, final message to the audience?
That we're in a time of change and that the change can be positive. A lot of it has to do with how we see it, and when things are in flux, opportunities present themselves. So I suggest to everybody to try to do the absolute best you can using compassion and unconditional love, which we were speaking of, in all situations as things go into flux and into transition.
Excellent. Well, I just want to say, Annie Stillwater Gray, I'm so glad we redid this interview. Well, not redid it, but rescheduled it to have it to happen right now, because this has been such a pleasure to have you on. It really has.
You're very welcome. It was my pleasure as well.
Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on our past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.co.uk, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.